Good morning from Fluttering Dreams Butterfly Ranch, located in Central Florida. So today we're going to be talking about milkweed. This is a milkweed, this is a milkweed, and this is a milkweed. We're going to talk about the different varieties of milkweed and why some people may prefer some milkweeds over others. But before we get started, I want to ask you, please subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up. And any comments that you may add are answered personally, and I love questions and be more than glad to help you with your butterfly garden. So right now it's like 9:30 in the morning. It is extremely hot in Florida, so of course I have my shop fan over here going. I suggest if you don't have a shop fan for your butterfly garden, get you one, especially if you live in Florida. So let's start with this milkweed right here first. This is a giant milkweed. This happens to be a purple giant milkweed. And you can see it's already starting to produce flowers. Personally, in my butterfly garden, I have not seen my butterflies take nectar out of the giant milkweed, but they do lay their eggs. The monarchs lay their eggs on the giant milkweed. A lot of people prefer the giant milkweed because the leaves last longer. For the caterpillars, it's whatever you prefer. Monarchs like all species of milkweeds. So there's not that monarchs prefer one milkweed over another, but monarchs are kind of, I like to call them like people, right? So some people like to eat at the buffet, some people like to eat at a sit-down restaurant, and I think that that's what monarchs do. I think that some monarchs just prefer different milkweeds than others. That's why I try to keep a variety of milkweeds in my garden for my monarchs to be able to pick and choose over. So we're going to start first with the Florida native milkweed. So this is the Florida native milkweed. As you can see, its leaves are much, much tinier than the giant milkweed. And some people say that the plant just doesn't last as long when it comes to feeding caterpillars. Well, that is true. They're going to eat this plant much quicker than they're going to eat the giant milkweed, only because of the size of the leaves and the size of the stalks. So caterpillars will not just eat the leaves, they will also eat the stalks. They prefer the leaves, of course, but the stalks are a proper nutrition for them. This milkweed here, now this is called the Mexican scarlet milkweed, and you can see the size of its leaves compared to the native milkweed. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to pick off a leaf. So this is the native Florida milkweed, and this is the Mexican scarlet milkweed. Well, there again, you can see the difference in the size of the leaves, as well as the flowers that bloom on them. So this one is the Mexican scarlet, and you can see that the blooms on it are a scarlet red with a little bit of yellow, where this particular Florida milkweed, it's called a pink bloom. I consider that white, but if you look closely, the back side of the bloom is somewhat pink. But then there is another variety that the bloom itself is very pink. And I do believe that different monarchs like to have different colors. I just believe they're like people. I think that they like colors. I think they like different taste of nectars, because the Florida milkweed plant, the Mexican milkweed plant, and the giant milkweed plant are going to taste different to your monarch, because the blooms are different, and so it's obviously going to produce a different taste of nectar. It's sort of like some people like Diet Coke and some people like regular Coke, right? So when you're feeding monarchs, this is what I say about monarch caterpillars. It's like feeding your teenage boys and their friends and their friends' friends and their friends' friends' friends, because monarch caterpillars are very aggressive eating, and they will eat down huge plants to nothing. So this is an example of a plant that I had in my enclosure for the monarchs to feed off of, and you can see they literally ate this plant all the way down to the stalks. Now all these new little leaves that you see popping up, they've just popped up in the past couple of days, but they literally ate this whole plant down. And that plant started off being this size. So you can see how they will eat down a whole plant in a matter of days. And then talking about growing your own milkweed. So I do grow my own milkweed from seeds. I have tried getting seeds from other people in other locations. You know, there's a lot of Facebook pages where people are, you know, send me a self-addressed stamped envelope and I'll send you some seeds. The only problem with that is that some milkweed do not thrive well in Florida. So what you have to do is when you're going to buy milkweed or milkweed seeds, you'll need to see, are they going to thrive well? So I am in zone 9 in Central Florida. I tried the snowy milkweed. The snowy milkweed just did not work for me. I think that there's just too much heat in Florida. So, and then I have some milkweeds that really like the full sun in Florida, but some of them, they suffer a little bit too much being in the full sun all day. And it's just because it's constantly, you know, 90 some degrees in the summer. So what I've done is I usually take my milkweed and I find out, do you like this location before I plant it in the ground? And if I do have it in that location and it seems to not be doing well, I'll move it to a space where maybe it gets the morning sun and afternoon shade and some of the evening sun, or, you know, I kind of play with my garden a lot. I move plants around a lot to see where does the plant want to live, because it's not up to me, it's up to the plant. And so these little seedlings here, I started these in my garden. Today is May the 30th, and I planted these seeds on February 23rd. So you see, they do grow fast, but it's going to take a while before they get a hardy enough stalk, right, for a monarch caterpillar to feed off of. Now this is the thing, even though this is a baby milkweed, I have had monarchs come lay eggs on little tiny plants like this. So if you're going to keep your little tiny plants outside, just be aware that a monarch can lay an egg on there. What I do when the monarch lays an egg on a tiny little plant like this and I see the baby caterpillar, I pinch the leaf off and then I'll just transfer. And the reason I'm pinching the leaf off is so I don't disturb that ever so tiny little baby caterpillar. I'll pinch the leaf off and then I'll take it and I'll put it over on a larger plant so that the caterpillar is going to survive well, but it's not going to devour my little seedling plant before my little seedling plant becomes a whole plant, right? Because the whole point of having a butterfly garden is that you have plenty of food for your caterpillars. Now monarchs don't need other nectar plants if you have milkweeds that are blooming, but they do like a variety. There again, I have to say that butterflies are like people. They like the buffet, so they want different types of nectar. And there are many, many plants that monarchs like to have nectar. In my garden here in Central Florida, one of their favorites happened to be the penta plant. So it has a very small little flower bud. This is a white one. They do have them in red as well as, reach over here and get this one, as well as pink. So the way I like to plant them, I like to plant them red, white, pink in a cluster like that, because in a cluster like that, your monarch butterfly doesn't have to go a long way to feed, especially your females. So your females, when they're born, they will feed and then they breed and lay eggs. Your males are going to keep watch over. So sorry, I'm very distracted by this tiny little caterpillar crawling up right here. Let me get a, what did I do with that monarch leaf? I had a minute ago. Oh, it flew away. Let me, so, there he is. There's another one climbing up this enclosure I have right here. Hold on one second and let me get him a leaf. Let me grab him. So when you're moving caterpillars, let me turn him around a little bit. So when you're moving caterpillars, the thing is that caterpillars, they really don't like to be touched, right? I heard one scientist say that when you touch caterpillars, you're giving them teeny, tiny little heart attacks. I don't want to do that. I love my monarchs. I love my caterpillars. If I knew I was giving a caterpillar a baby heart attack. I think I think I would just be crushed, right? So the best way to do it is I usually take something natural. If it's a milkweed leaf, it doesn't even have to be a milkweed leaf. Currently I'm sitting underneath an oak tree. So I can take an oak tree leaf, and all you have to do is stick it up underneath his nose, and he will literally climb onto the other leaf. Now, if you've got a milkweed, he doesn't want to come off the milkweed to go onto the oak leaf, just saying. But you have to be very gentle, because what they're doing is they're making a little trail of silk, and that little silk helps their little feet hold on to the leaves. And, you know, they've got all these little feet, and so that little bit of silk is helping them hold on to the leaf without falling off, especially when the wind's blowing or it rains. And when you disturb their little silk, it just doesn't make them happy. I mean, you think about you. When you're in your happy place and somebody comes along and says, "I'm sorry, you have to move," you know, it makes you not feel good. But I don't know if it's a real thing about giving them little tiny heart attacks, but I don't run the risk. I don't, if that is true, I don't want to give my caterpillars little tiny heart attacks. So I hope that has helped you with your milkweed. And a lot of people will say online, what kind of milkweed do I have? Really, it doesn't really matter what kind of milkweed you have, as long as the milkweed that you have survives well in the area that you live in. If that milkweed survives well, the monarchs don't care what kind of milkweed it is. And really in your garden, so I have about 7 varieties of milkweed. I have the giant milkweed, I have the Florida natural milkweed, I have Mexican milkweed, I have what's called common milkweed. There's lots and lots of varieties. Caterpillars don't care. They just care that it's milkweed, okay? Monarchs don't care. Monarchs are going to lay their eggs on it. They don't care what it is. Now, the giant milkweed, of course, needs a bigger space. If you don't have a lot of space, then I would go with a more common milkweed. If you're in Florida and you're very limited on space, the Florida native milkweed is the way to go. Now, I know a lot of people believe in plant native to native. I somewhat agree to that, but monarchs migrate. So here in Florida, monarchs can migrate from Texas to Mexico, and so I want to have a variety of foods for them. In Florida, monarchs do stay here all year round. And then the other thing about milkweeds is make sure that you're watering them enough. Especially, you'll notice that different times of year they don't need as much watering as other times of year. Just be conscious and pay attention to your milkweed garden. If you only have milkweed and you do not have nectar plants such as the penta, then your butterflies are not going to stay. What they're going to do is they're going to come and lay their eggs, and then the butterflies themselves are going to leave. So you're going to want to make sure that you have nectar plants as well as host plants. Milkweed is considered a host plant and a nectar plant, both for monarchs, but monarchs still want to have other nectar plants available to them as well. I also have a video on black swallowtails. I have black swallowtails that I raise and then release, and blue-black swallowtails, the traditional swallowtails, black swallowtails, and eastern swallowtails. I also have started getting into pipe vine caterpillars, pipe vine butterflies, buckeye butterflies and caterpillars, and Gulf fluteri caterpillars and butterflies. So I want to thank you for watching my channel. I want to thank you for watching my video. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'd really love to have you come to my channel and learn more about how to make your butterfly garden your fluttering dreams as well. Thank you.